Give it a try. Okay.
First mistake we have to look out for when starting the drums is playing drum fills every measure. I don't know about you, but I sounded a lot like this when I first started the drums. My timing wasn't near what it is now, so it sounded a little, not in time. The next one is what I call the ums, ands, and buts. I had a college class I walked out of after 15 minutes and dropped it from my schedule because the professor said over 100 times in the first 15 minutes.
First of all,
Sometimes in our drumming, it can start to sound like that. I like to call these habits or quirks. Sometimes later on in our playing, when we're intentional about them, they sound really good. But at the beginning, when we really don't know that they're happening, they can get in the way of the music. Let me give you an example of one that I used to do all the time. Now I could change the beat, but it would still be there. Maybe it didn't happen every measure, maybe it happened every other measure, but they weren't intentional. So it took me a long time to realize, oh man, I should stop doing that unless I actually mean to. It's very like saying or but or and when you don't mean to and you're carrying on a conversation. So it was like and I was playing the drum beat and then we went to the see how that happens? The third one is never playing to music. I've actually talked to several students that have recently signed up to my online drum school, and they have told me that they've been playing for over a year and they haven't played a song in its entirety. All too often I see the mistake of drummers not playing enough music. We need to be playing to as much music as possible. When I get a new student, they are up and playing music in the first lesson if they're taking an in-person lesson from me. And if they're in my online drum school, then in the first set of lessons, which are divided kind of a little bit differently than an in-person lesson would be, they are playing a song. That is the goal, to immediately start playing a song. The fourth mistake is the other side of this, and that's only playing to music, but not just playing the parts, not like learning the song and playing the parts, but just jamming. Like you're playing to your favorite song, but you haven't listened to anything that's happening in the song. You're just jamming and freaking out over the top of it. Look, there's a place for this, and I suggest everybody set aside some time in your practice time to just freak out and have fun. But that can't be all we do, unless that's all you want to do. And then that's okay. But if we want to progress in our drumming, as Zig Ziglar would say, we can't be wondering generalities. We have to be meaningful specifics in our practice time. The fifth one is not learning to hit the drums properly. So we don't have any consistency when we're hitting the drums, or maybe we're striking the cymbals right onto the edge. So that's gonna crack your cymbal, by the way. We need to have a glancing blow off of the edge of the cymbal. Whenever we're hitting a drum, we need to know that it sounds different in the middle versus right off the center versus towards the edge. And all too often I'll hear drummers that are playing all over their drums and the sounds are not optimal that they're getting. So paying attention to where we're hitting the drums, how we're hitting the drums, and the sound that we're getting out of the drums can go a long way. The sixth one is simply because I had so many great teachers and mentors, but I see them failing to get a teacher or a musical mentor or other people in their lives, or maybe enrolling in a music or drum program, whether that be online or in person or a book, that helps them further themselves in a systematic way. Do you have to have a drum teacher to get better at the drums? No, you don't. Can they get you there quicker? Yes, a good teacher or a good online drum program can get you there quicker. In the same right, a really bad teacher can do the opposite. So you need to assess your teacher whenever you're taking from them and go, hey, am I going in and they're asking me what we're gonna do, or do they actually have a plan for me? The seventh thing is not paying attention to the balance of the sounds as you're playing. I call this mixing our own drums. So a lot of times when I see a new drummer come in, they sound like this. Everything has exclamation points on it. They're yelling all the time. Or it's like whenever I first started to learn how to play jazz. This is what it sounded like. Right? It's like the Spinal Tap jazz experience.
On the bass, Derek Smalls. He wrote this.
What we need to understand is that changing the volumes and mixing our own sound can make things sound way different. Let me give an example of this. I'm gonna take a drum beat and then I'm gonna start nesting things in here so that I'm mixing the sound and some things come out at certain times and some things get buried at certain times. Let's take a basic rock funk groove. You see how I articulated some accented notes in the hi-hat, some unaccented notes. Then I took and I carved down a backbeat. Then I had another one that was slightly lower but still accented on the, I think it was the of 4. Then I nested the others as some ghost notes. And by doing that, what we do is we create a layered sound. And our sound sounds much more mature than maybe it should. Instead of chasing speed and flash, we would be better spent trying to get some of these fundamentals down because they are gonna separate us from other players. We'll just sound more mature. The next one is they skip over the technique side of things. I'm not one of those teachers that thinks we need to be obsessed with technique and I'm gonna put you on the drum pad for 8 months before you can ever touch the drum kit. But I am obsessed with you not hurting yourself while you're drumming and finding an easier way to play the drums. That's where technique comes in. The 9th one is thinking that speed is our only tool as drummers. As I've been demonstrating, it's definitely not. I can't tell you the number of times I've had to take a student and say, hey, stop trying to speed it up. We're not there yet. Let's focus on something that you can do. Maybe some dynamics. Let's focus on playing it softer. Let's focus on playing it louder. And this brings us to the 10th one, not focusing on how it feels. We go through the exercise, we make sure that all the notes are there, but the notes don't feel good. Take it from someone that almost lost my full-time gig when I was 19 on Bourbon Street because I could not make people dance. I did not have any groove. What I played did not feel good. I literally almost lost my apartment, all the money I was making. I had just moved to a new city, all because I could not make people dance. So just as important as the notes we are playing, we want to know how those notes feel when we play them. The 11th thing is ignoring the other musicians and the other parts of the song. It takes a little bit of maturity to look outside of ourselves and realize, hey, there's other musicians here. They're playing other parts. Maybe this part I came up with doesn't work with what they're doing. When I'm in the studio, the number one thing I'm doing is editing my playing. I usually come in with an idea and it's usually a little too complex. The times that I simplify my parts versus the times that I make my parts more complex when in a studio setting, there's a vast gulf between them. Because what I'm doing is I'm trying to hear what everybody else is doing and I'm trying to fit into that music. The next one is not spending time on their drum setup. I mean, they've got a tom facing this way, they got cymbals over here, they've got a bass drum that's walked across the room, their hi-hat, it's cocked like this, so their foot, they're like, my leg hurts. We need to take time and just look at how we set the drums up. In the beginner course in my Drum Better Daily program, which is my online drum school, I teach them how to set their drums up we start with just the throne. Like, is it high enough? Do you feel good? Okay, and then we bring in each individual element and we think about where it is and why it's there. Our instrument is different than other instruments. We can change most everything about it. A piano is a piano is a piano. It's just there, that's how it is. You can raise your seat sometimes you can't, it's just a wooden bench sometimes. But the drums are completely customizable. There's no wrong answers. I just wanna know, why are you doing that? Why are you setting it up like that? The 13th one is not learning to tune their drums. There's far too many resources out there for free that teach you how to get a good drum sound for us not to be getting a good drum sound at this point. Here's my suggestion for you. Don't try to do it in your practice session. If you do that, you're gonna get frustrated because in their practice session, you wanna be playing the drums. So what we wanna do is we wanna set aside a time, get a drink of your choice, whether that be coffee or water, whatever you like, sit down, take one drum, and tune it. Get a good sound out of it. Once you've done that, go to the next drum. But don't do it in your practice time. Set aside a time to do it outside of your practice time. The more you practice drum tuning, the better you'll get at it. The 14th one is the one I talk daily with my students about, and it's inconsistent practice times with no real goals attached to them. They've got no plan. I spend so much time with my students going, was that the goal that we set? Okay, why are we working on that? Ignore the shiny object. We need to work on this. I said it earlier, like Zig Ziglar said, we become wondering generalities instead of meaningful specifics. I did this just this week in my practice time. I sat down after a couple days, I was like, okay, the problem is I've got inconsistent times I'm showing up this week, and I don't have a true purpose. Let me find my north here. Once I find that North Star, then I'm good. And I did. I've had great practice sessions the past 3 days. But I'm human. I have to do that too. One of the things my dad used to say that has stuck with me my entire life was, come on, people, move with a purpose. We need to show up more days than not during the week to practice the drums, even if it's just 15 minutes. That consistency of time and showing up and that consistency of direction are key. The 15th one is focusing on speed over slow, correct repetitions. Speed is a natural byproduct of learning something well. If we learn something well, the speed comes naturally. You know the old saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If we try to speed up before it's time, it just sounds sloppy. Number 16 is comparing yourself to others. I'm not talking about looking at another drummer and going, oh man, I hope that one day I can sound that good. What I'm talking about is comparing their journey to your journey, where it makes you feel bad when you show up to practice. Competitions are for horses, not music. You cannot compare your insides to somebody else's outsides. Apples and oranges cannot be compared because they're not the same thing. These are all sayings that I've just collected over the years, and one of my favorite is, if we spend our time trying to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, the fish is always a failure. You're on your own unique journey. Look for quality in your playing. Strive for quality. Show up consistently. Work on consistent material towards consistent goals. And stop ruining your practice time by comparing your insides to somebody else's outsides.